Today we're going to talk about financial planning. This is obviously a critical topic to your continued success and your continued level of comfort with your everyday life going forth until the end of your career and beyond. So we don't want to just wing that. We brought in an expert. This is Bruce Henning. He's from a group in Charlotte called the Professional Planning Group. He's been in financial planning for 29 years,
Yeah.
So he is an expert. So let's start. The first broadest question. In medicine, you want to know what you can't do.
Right.
So what are the 5 mistakes that you see young doctors making? The critical things that we should avoid?
Wow, good question. I would say the top 5 would be, the first one is not having a financial plan at all. Just winging it, moving through, just trying to get it done, on the cuff and not having an actual plan. Best thing to do is get a plan and work your plan. The second is, once you start getting paid, having the idea that you're going to spend and save money second. And we just know from lots of experience that just doesn't work. There's no money left over at the end of the month. And it just happens, and next thing you know, you're year by year and you haven't saved any money. So get a plan, save first to meet your goals, and spend second. And with that, you're really living guilt-free because what you're spending you feel comfortable about. It works, do it. Third is, don't buy too big a home. I have just seen so many physicians end up being a slave to their home and just regretting it. So be smart about the first home you buy and the size and how much you spend with that home. And then fourth is, oftentimes physicians won't have either the right kind or enough of the right kind of disability or life insurance. So we definitely want, that's the foundation of a financial plan. It may feel expensive initially, but it is the foundation, so get that part right. And then last is building a good team of advisors. It's just critical that you find the right people to help you that you're comfortable with. Having people that you trust to guide you through the years and doing your financial planning is just all important. And I will say there are some out there that aren't good, so you might have to ask around and kick the tires a little bit.
Well, that's a good question. So that's a good point. When we finish residency, a lot of times we'll move to somewhere we've never been. We may not have connections or family ties, but that's when we need to start setting this stuff up. Mm-hmm. You have suggestions for how to find somebody in a new town or a new city?
I would suggest whoever you're working with. I would assume maybe the other people in your practice, other physicians that you would just know through the hospital or wherever you're working. Ask them. Just ask around. Who do you trust? Who do you like? Who's works well for you? And then don't feel like you can't contact them. They'd love to be contacted. Contact them and interview them. Have that conversation with them and see if they're a right fit for you.
Okay. So when I found that person, the first conversation that we had was to make a financial plan. Mm-hmm. So what are the tenets of a financial plan for somebody fresh out of, or a year or two out of residency, or in their residency? What are the critical things that need to be organized, or what are the critical things that need to be included in a financial plan?
I would
with debt, assuming that I have debt.
Right.
We do.
Starting off early, and especially if you have school loans,
right.
School debt. Yeah, we would take a sort of a 3-prong approach to this. We want to attack the debt hard. We want you to, as soon as you're eligible, to begin to fully fund your 401k plan. And then third, start a systematic investment program, per month, where you can dollar cost average. We just find that debt, we want to get it off the balance sheet. Most everybody who doesn't like it understands it, and so we'll attack it really hard. We start with the highest interest debt and move down. And I do want to say it won't happen overnight. It might take 3, 4, 5, 6 years to get that done, but we want to go after that.
Is that even if it's low interest debt? Say my student loans are 2.5%.
Even that. If you have only 2.5%, but again, you said ideally.
Yeah.
We may take a harder look at that and maybe work it down a little slower. But I often see 6.5%, 7%, and so we definitely want to move that off.
I guess that's a conversation that's specific to each individual.
It is.
But I think one thing that you hear over and over again is fund your retirement. You should have done it when you were 20, and I didn't. You should have done it when I was 25, and I didn't.
Right.
And now I'm 33. Is all retirement funding the same? What are the vehicles that I want to pay attention to or try and focus my energy and money on?
Well, clearly the 401k plan. It is, it's there, it's a gift for you. The maximum you can do is $17,500. So if your income's $200,000, that's $17,500 that you won't pay tax on, and that's the beauty of that. And then while it grows, you don't pay tax on it. You won't pay tax on it till you take it out, and hopefully that's in retirement. So you want to take advantage of that. Oftentimes, too, we find that in medical practices they have profit sharing plans. And a profit sharing plan, even though you aren't putting money out of your paycheck into it, your employer is contributing to the plan for you. And so assuming that's there, you want to definitely take advantage of that.
So the main difference between, because this is a little fuzzy to me, the main difference between profit sharing and 401k is that profit sharing is funded by my employer or the company that I work in, and 401k is funded by me pre-tax.
Correct. They're both pre-tax, but the 401k, you elect how much will come out of your paycheck, anywhere from 0 to $17,500, and that's for this year. And then the profit sharing is your employer can elect year by year how much to contribute. But if things are good and working the way they should, then hopefully that's being funded well, and it's being met like the rent, that it's seen as a necessary expense of the business.
So my dad and I talk about finances. He always says the first thing I need to do is fund my 401k. What is so magical, other than it's pre-tax dollars and you take it out when you're retired? Why is that money more valuable in a 401k than it is me taking it and investing it in the stock market?
Right. Well, you can invest in the stock market in 401k, but at first I want to give kudos to your dad if he gave you that advice, because that is great advice. The part of it is you're getting a late start. You're in your 30s, you've got, you might have, like we said, some school debt, and you're making these decisions. Where's my money going to go? Well, you may be almost 40 years old before you start funding towards your retirement. Well, there's a big difference between that and someone in their 20s that started, even if it was a lesser amount of money. We call it the magic of compounding.
Right. What is compounding?
Compounding is your money earning money, so it's interest on interest.
Okay.
Again, it's catching up and having that ability. You might only have 20 to 25 years to fund your retirement, and so everything that you can do will be helping. We want to get you started as soon as possible.
I think if I run it through my office or through my pension and profit sharing or my 401k through the office, it seems like I might pick a fund that money goes to, or a couple of different funds. When is the time to bring in an expert or a financial advisor as it regards that, or should I have one for an overall scheme? What's the role of a financial advisor on retirement?
Well, like I said, one of the big mistakes would be to not have a financial plan, meaning not have a financial planner or financial advisor. So you want to have that, and he or she should be looking at your retirement investment options. So most 401ks are going to have anywhere from 12 to 60, 70 different investment options. And as y'all have sat down and figured out what kind of risk tolerance and et cetera, then hopefully they'll help you choose those investments. You would end up with most likely a well-diversified portfolio of mutual funds in your 401k, and all the way from very aggressive down to very conservative. And then that should be monitored by them, and of course you. But most likely you're busy and you're not thinking about it, and that's their job to think about that.
So when I looked at mine, each number or each possible fund to invest in had a fee attached to it. A simpleton might look at it and say, well, why would I pay a high fee when I have this one here that's a lower fee? Why would I pay a higher fee?
Well, you wouldn't always. I think that's a great point. Great performance doesn't necessarily come from higher fees, but it could. So most of the time I would advise that you look at the lower fee funds, but there are some times where the performance will outweigh whatever the expenses of that fund are. If you've got a manager that's just done really well over a long period of time and it tends to be a little more expensive, well, we'll take a hard look at that and say, is that performance outweigh what the expenses are? And sometimes the answer is yes, but oftentimes the answer is no. So, but again, it'll depend on the situation, and there's no hard and fast rule.
We talked about high fee and low fee plans and or mutual funds.
Mhm.
I assume that part of that is how a financial advisor would make a living, and how I would pay for that. Are there different ways to pay for a financial advisor?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. First, a financial advisor can offer you different services from A to Z. Some advisors might offer you comprehensive financial planning, and others may just want to manage assets. But within that, there is a distinction, and that's where.
Meaning the two differences: one person would sit with you and make a plan, say these are your financial pillars, this is how we're going to take care of them,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody else might say, you might say, here's $50,000, manage it, and that's it. Right?
And that's correct.
Okay.
But then from there, to get to your original question, there are really two ways that we're compensated. One would be commissions, and the other fees, or it could be commission and fees. And there's a big distinction. And in my industry, there's actually a debate going on which is sort of more proper. Commissions are typically from brokers, and there's a standard that they use which is called suitability. And so it's just a question of, is that investment suitable for you, for your age and your risk tolerance, etc. That would be for the commission. For a fee advisor, they're held to an entirely different standard. It's called a fiduciary. And that standard means that I can only do what is in your very best interest. So I'm required to do that by that fiduciary standard. So there is a significant difference there, and I would certainly recommend that you seek out someone who is a fiduciary, acts as a fiduciary, and would look at only what's in your best interest.
So the difference between having a fiduciary versus, what was the other one?
A broker.
Broker is it how much I pay, or is it how that person's responsibility is linked to what they're paid?
That would be the latter.
The latter. Okay. So it sounds like a piece, or it seems to me like a piece of a financial plan would be taking care of your family, education. College is expensive. The way to do that is a 529 plan, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what are the differences between different 529 plans? It sounds like people that I've heard talk about North Carolina or Virginia plans.
Okay. Yeah, 529 plan is an educational savings plan that's operated by the states. The tax rules are federal in nature, not state. But just real quickly, the advantage is that it gives families a chance to put away money, not pre-tax, but with after-tax dollars. But once the money's invested, it grows tax deferred. And then as long as the money's used for educational expenses, you can take the money out tax-free. So those are the advantages. The difference between the states is where the money's invested, and so what your investment choices are. So in North Carolina, for instance, they use the Vanguard mutual funds, family of funds. And in Virginia, they use the American funds, family of funds. And so certain advisors might have difference of opinions, or you may have opinions about whether you want to use the Vanguard funds or the American funds. So that's the big difference between the states. As far as tax advantages, those are the same across the board. However, one caveat is if you live in North Carolina and you use the North Carolina fund, then you can get a small deduction on your state income tax, not your federal, but your state. I believe you can deduct up to $5,000 per year for money that, assuming you put in that much, into the 529 plan.
If I have 3 children and I start a 529 for the first one, but not the other 2,
Mm-hmm.
not that I don't love them,
Mm-hmm.
but is it the same? Can I use that same pool of money for all 3 children, or is that specific to that child?
No, it's a great question. Yes, the answer is yes. You can use it for any of the children,
As long as it's going towards education, it doesn't
That's
matter.
correct. So
No
if the
Social
first
Security.
child doesn't go to college and child 2 does, then you can use those funds for child 2.
And I don't lose that money if none of my 3 children or 4 children, or if nobody goes to college, that money's not gone. It's just the growth of it is taxed when I take it out. Is that right?
That would be correct.
It's under capital gains.
That would be correct.
Okay. Let's say I wanted to be a little bit more educated than just the 5 pillars. The pillars of. Is there a website where I can understand things like where the fees are going, or which funds or groups or brokerage houses offer certain things?
Not so much which brokerage houses could offer certain things, but certainly in having some information, either what your advisor's offering, and you want to look at it and say, okay, is this fund that they're recommending, what are the fees? Are they high? Are they low? Then there are all kinds of resources, but one of them I'd recommend is morningstar.com. That you'd be able to get all the information about any fund, because there are just tens of thousands of different funds out there that you can then have a sense of what are the managers charging, what are the expenses, are they average, are they high, are they low, are they no load, are they load, that kind of information. So it's readily available on the internet. I'd start with Morningstar.
Well, thanks for being here.
Sure, thank you.